Hey y'all, in today's video I'm going to be screening in my back patio. This is what it looked like before. The first step was pulling out all my pressure treated 2x4s that I had in my lumber storage. Of course they were in the back of the stack, but I finally got to them. And if anyone could tell me how I hurt myself in this next clip, that would be very helpful. Alright, so it's been like 2 hours. I think I pulled a muscle in my back, but I took some Tylenol and iced it. So I'm going to try to keep working. I do not know how you could pull a muscle in your back just moving a thing like that, but I did. And I stretched this morning, so kind of annoying, but gonna keep going. Next I sorted through my 2x4s and pulled out the ones that were too bad to use, and then I puttied the rest of them so that they could be painted to match the trim of the house. These 2x4s are going to act as the frame that the screen attaches to. After the wood putty dried, I went through and sanded them all down with 120 grit sandpaper. Then I gave them a thick layer of base paint on all 4 sides. I knew it would be way easier to paint them before they were installed, so I didn't make it perfect, I just wanted them to be easier to paint later on. I let the paint dry overnight and then I carried them to the back patio the next day. Next I needed to cut out the trim around the posts. I used a 2x4 as a guide and I cut it out with an oscillating multi-tool. Then I used a chisel to clean it up. Then I measured and cut out the base plate to size. Next I measured and drilled out the holes for my tap cons. I used 4" by 1/4" tap cons. Next I measured and cut out the pieces that would make up the rest of this little frame for this side of the porch. After getting it in place, I used some deck screws to attach it on all 3 sides. I then repeated these steps on the other side of the porch. The only difference on this side is that there would be a 3rd piece in the middle, and that I didn't have long enough 2x4s to stretch all the way across the top and bottom. Luckily none of this is structural, it's just serving as a place for somewhere to attach the screen. I used pocket holes to attach the centerpiece. I want to mention that I did this job in Texas in June, and it was about 100 degrees every day that I was working on this. By about 2 or 3 o'clock, the whole porch was in the direct sunlight, so I could only really work on it for a few hours every day. But slowly I got it done. The front was the same as the sides, except for I had to leave space for a door. The top 2x4 you see here is just there so that I can line it up to make sure that the bottom 2x4s are in a straight line. The door opening has 2 layers of 2x4s. One layer is to hold the screen and the other layer is to hold the door. I forgot to account for the bottom plate, so I had to take off these boards and cut them down 1.5 inches so that the door would fit. It was so hot that my phone kept overheating, so I didn't get a good shot of this, but this is just me putting on the hinges. One side is on the door and one side is on the frame. To attach the screen, I used a system called Screen Tight. You can buy it at all the local stores in my area. I tried cutting this stuff with my miter saw, but it didn't work. It just kind of exploded, so I switched over to the oscillating multi-tool, and that worked pretty well. I attached these strips to my 2x4 frame using 1 5/8" deck screws. I used these screws because that's what I had on hand. I want to give a quick shout out to Ryan. He gave me a GoPro to film on so I could have a second angle for everything, which was super helpful. I missed a couple of shots with the iPhone, so it was nice to have a second camera. And I just want to say thank you. His YouTube channel will be linked in the description of this video. I bought an 8-foot tall roll of screen for this job. I cut it out on the ground and used a spline tool and some spline to attach it to my screen tight system. I did the same thing to the front and to the other side. Then I added a piece of screen to each section. The last step was to cut and to snap in the frame cover. I ended up using a rubber mallet to tap it on, and that worked pretty well. Next I ripped down a 2x4 into 1/2-inch strips to make a frame around the door. I attached this first using brad nails and then screws. After adding some additional blocking in the ceiling, I added a ceiling fan. I also added a couple blocks of wood to block off these holes. Then I added some foam weather stripping to the top and both sides. My fiance did all the touch-up painting, so that didn't get filmed, but it happened. And the final step was a lock on the door. And here's the final look on the outside. Isn't she a beaut? She is beautiful, comfy to sit out there. You can see I put some chairs in there. Got them off of Amazon. Beautiful. Alright, now that I finished editing this video, it's time to start editing the next one. Bye!